The chandelier above the Regency Ballroom at the Fairmont Crest Hotel glittered like a constellation trapped in crystal, casting a warm, golden glow over the 250 guests who had gathered to celebrate my 10th wedding anniversary with Daniel Hargrove. The room buzzed with the low hum of polite conversation, the clink of champagne flutes, and the subtle strains of a jazz quartet I'd handpicked to play our song Moonlight Serenade during Daniel's toast. I, Eleanor Grayson Hargrove, had spent 4 months orchestrating every detail of this night. The cascading orchids in the centerpieces, the vintage 1955 Krug champagne chilling in silver buckets, the 7-course menu featuring Daniel's favorite braised short ribs. I'd even designed the custom invitations, embossed with our initials in gold foil, ensuring Boston's social elite would mark this as the event of the season. For a decade, I'd been the impeccable wife, flawless, poised, the woman who turned Daniel's ambition into a polished reality. Tonight was supposed to be the crown jewel of that effort. 3 minutes before everything unraveled, I was still that woman. Smiling warmly as Daniel worked the room, shaking hands with board members from Hargrove Financial, and charming the Whitfield Sauer potential investors in a deal that could catapult his firm into the national spotlight, I adjusted the sapphire pendant at my throat, a gift from Daniel on our 5th anniversary. He hadn't noticed when my smile stiffened, when my hand brushed his phone as it buzzed insistently beside his untouched creme brulee. "Your phone, darling," I said, lifting it with a casual grace I perfected over years of playing the supportive spouse. The lock screen preview flashed just enough. "Can't wait for tomorrow's private session," from someone named Tara. Below it, a thumbnail of crimson lace against pale skin. My stomach lurched, but my face remained a mask of composure. "I'll take that," Daniel said, plucking the phone from my fingers with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Probably work." He tucked it into his jacket pocket and turned back to Edward Whitfield, laughing at some quip about market trends. I excused myself, murmuring something about checking the dessert service, and slipped into the hallway, my heels clicking against the marble floor. In the privacy of a bathroom stall, I pulled out my own phone since to Daniel's, a decision he'd insisted on years ago, so we'd never lose each other. The irony burned as I opened the messages. Not just tonight's photo, dozens of them stretching back 14 months. Hotel receipts, suggestive texts, photos I couldn't unsee. "Stuck in New York for that conference," one read from last spring, when I'd sent him a care package of his favorite cigars. "She's out of town for her sister's wedding, come over." Another from June, when I'd been in D.C., planning a congressional gala. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone into the toilet. A cold, strange calm settled over me as the pieces clicked into place. The late nights blamed on client meetings, the weekend emergencies, the sudden promotion of Tara Blake from junior analyst to executive assistant with a salary that rivaled senior partners. I'd met Hera Sharp, ambitious 26-year-old with a smile too bright and eyes that lingered on Daniel a beat too long. How had I missed it? "Eleanor, dear, the toast is about to start," came a voice from outside the stall. Margaret Pierce, wife of Daniel's business partner Thomas. I straightened, reapplied my lipstick in the mirror, and smiled at her reflection. "I'll be right there." As I walked back to the ballroom, memories assaulted me. Daniel insisting Tara join us for Thanksgiving at our Cape Cod house, praising her unmatched dedication, the way he'd casually brushed her arm at last year's company retreat. I dismissed it as charm, his natural charisma. Now it felt like a neon sign I'd been too blind or too trusting to read. "There you are," Daniel said, pulling out my chair with that effortless grin I'd once adored. "Everything perfect enough for you yet?" His teasing about my perfectionism had always been a private joke, but tonight it landed like a hollow echo. The waitstaff poured champagne, the quartet hushed, and the massive LED screen behind the head table, part of the AV system I'd upgraded for the hotel 2 years ago, flickered to life with a photo from our wedding day. Me in ivory lace, Daniel beaming beside me, my parents glowing with pride in the front row. Daniel rose, glass in hand, his voice resonating through the state-of-the-art sound system I'd specified in the event contract. 10 years ago I made the best decision of my life," he began, the room falling silent under his spell. Even now, I marveled at his ability to command attention, the perfect husband, the perfect CEO. Except he wasn't. My fingers moved before my mind fully caught up, accessing the AV system through my phone. The hotel still used the same login credentials I'd set UPA. Careless oversight I suddenly appreciated. Eleanor teaches me every day about loyalty, he continued, his words dripping with irony as I selected Tara's latest photo from his message thread, about trust. I hit send. The screen shifted from our wedding photo to Tara in crimson lingerie, sprawled across a hotel bed. The caption, "Can't wait for tomorrow's private session," blazing in bold text 12 feet tall. Daniel's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the hardwood floor with a sound that pierced the stunned silence. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Senators, CEOs, my childhood friends, Daniel's mother, all staring at the high-definition wreckage of his secret life. I remained seated, hands steady on my phone, watching 10 years of marriage dissolve in real time. "Eleanor, what the hell?" Daniel hissed, his face paling as he lunged for his phone, as if he could erase what 250 people had already seen. The murmurs grew into a roar, Senator Caldwell's wife shielding her son's eyes, my father's jaw tightening with dawning fury. "Turn it off," Daniel snapped, grabbing my arm. "This isn't what it looks like." "Funny," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos with a steadiness that surprised me. "It looks exactly like your assistant in lingerie you bought with our joint account last month. The La Perla set, right? $2,200. You said it was for a client dinner." His grip faltered and I stood, smoothing the emerald silk of my gown, a dress I'd chosen to match his eyes, a detail that now felt bitterly poetic. "I believe Tara has your schedule covered for tomorrow," I added, loud enough for the front tables to hear, and walked away as the room erupted. In the lobby, I ignored the camera flashes blooming outside the glass doors, Boston's press corps descending like vultures. My phone buzzed relentlessly, but I couldn't face it yet. "Mrs. Hargrove," the valet said cautiously, his young face etched with concern, "would you like your car?" I almost laughed. Daniel had insisted we arrive in his Bentley. "It's the right look," he'd said. "Always the right look." "No, I'll call a ride." Before I could, the doors burst open behind me. Daniel stormed out, tie askew, fury contorting his features, flanked by 2 security guards in black suits. "You think this is a game?" he shouted, drawing stares from late-arriving guests. "You've just torched everything, me reputation, the Whitfield deal, our life." "Sir, please lower your voice," one guard said, stepping closer. Daniel shrugged him off, advancing toward me. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Thomas is pulling out of the deal. I'm ruined because of your little tantrum." I stepped back, maintaining distance. "Interesting that your first thought is business, not us. But then again, you told me outside this hotel 6 months ago that our marriage was a strategic alliance." "Your words, Daniel." He froze, then laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "It was Eleanor. Your family's political ties, my vision. It worked until you decided to play the scorned wife. You think you're the victim here? You've been living off my success for a decade." The words sliced deeper than I'd expected, confirming a truth I'd half known but never faced. "Mr. Hargrove," the larger guard interjected, "we've called you a car. It's best you leave separately tonight." Daniel straightened his jacket, ever mindful of appearances, and shot me a final glare. "This isn't over." His Bentley peeled away as guests began trickling out, some averting their eyes, others staring openly. Margaret Pierce, the Whitfields, board members I'd hosted at our Beacon Hill townhouse. Margaret approached, her husband Thomas hovering behind her. "Eleanor, darling," she began, reaching for my hands. I pulled away. "Don't." Her pity faltered, replaced by unease. "How long have you known?" I asked. She glanced at Thomas, who suddenly found his shoes fascinating. "We suspected at the gala last year. I told Thomas to talk to Daniel, but," she trailed off. "A year," I said flatly. "You knew for a year and said nothing. Every brunch, every charity meeting, you let me play the fool." Thomas stepped forward. "Eleanor, you have to understand, in our world. In your world, you protect men like him at the expense of people you call friends." I cut in. "I understand perfectly." They retreated, whispering to each other, as the social lines redrew themselves in real time. Who paused with concern, who hurried past with averted gazes. My phone buzzed, a gamey mother this time. I let it go to voicemail as a woman in a tailored blazer approached. "Mrs. Hargrove, Lauren Kessler, Boston Herald." I'd love a statement. Not tonight. She nodded, then leaned closer. Off the record, Tara Blake isn't the first. I've been digging into Hargrove Financial for months. There's a pattern. Call me when you're ready. She slipped me her card and vanished into the crowd. A town car pulled up, the driver calling my name. Compliments of the hotel, Mrs. Hargrove, the valet explained. The manager thought you'd prefer privacy. I slid into the back seat, giving my address, and opened my laptop to our home network, just like our phones. Lauren's tip about encrypted emails nagged at me. I tried our anniversary date October 22, Dan the folder unlocked. Hundreds of emails flooded the screen. Divorce drafts from 8 months ago, financial plans to minimize my settlement, a timeline tied to the Whitfield deal. Her father's Senate seat has outlived its usefulness. One read from Daniel to his attorney. Once the deal closes, we proceed. Another email detailed severance packages for 2 prior assistants NDAs, payouts from discretionary funds I'd overseen. I'd been funding his betrayals. As we turned onto Beacon Hill, my phone rang, a local number. Mrs. Hargrove, this is Ryan from tech support at Fairmont Crest. The footage from tonight's online smartphones, you know. We tried to stop it. I thanked him, numb. By morning, the world would see it all. Strangely, I felt no shame, only a raw, unshackled freedom. The townhouse lights blazed. Daniel had beaten me home. Keep driving, I told the driver. Where to, ma'am? The Langham Hotel, I decided. I need a room and time to think. The Langham's penthouse suite was an extravagant impulse, but if my life was collapsing, I'd do it with a view of the Charles River. Morning brought clarity instead of despair. I sat on the bed, surrounded by printouts of Daniel's emails. A sleepless night revealing not just infidelity but a calculated strategy with me as a pawn. My phone rang. Daniel again. I silenced it and called a locksmith instead. Change the codes at 17 Willow Lane immediately, I told Jensen Security. New code. October 22nd, 27, the day he planned to leave me. By noon I'd secured the townhouse, the locksmith handing me new keys with a gruff. Read about it online. You're better off. Word traveled fast. Daniel's pounding on the door came an hour later. Eleanor, open the damn door. I activated my phone's recorder and spoke through the intercom. The house is ours, Daniel. Call your lawyer. Are you serious? After last night, you're lucky I haven't sued you for defamation. His voice softened, a tactic I'd heard in client negotiations. Ellie, please. It was a mistake. Tara means nothing, just stress relief. We've built a life together. I stayed silent, recording every word. Think about your career, he pressed. Your clients won't touch you after this. Your mother's foundation will drop you. Is one fling worth throwing it all away? When I didn't respond, his tone hardened. I made you, Eleanor. Your little event business was a hobby before my network. Your family's name means nothing without my polish. The threats piled up, each one captured on tape. Your father's Senate votes have got dirt to keep him quiet, he added. That stopped me cold. In his safe combination unchanged, I found a USB labeled Grayson Leverage. It held records of my father's role in burying a bribery scandal 5 years ago, tied to Daniel's early career. My family had sold me to protect themselves. My mother called next. Eleanor Grace Hargrove, what were you thinking? She snapped. Your father's dodging calls from every donor. The Whitfields pulled out all because you couldn't keep this discreet. You knew, I said. About Tara, about the others. Her silence was deafening. Grace and women handle these things privately, she finally said. It's how we survive. Survive, I echoed. Not live. I hung up, hands trembling, and dialed Lauren Kessler's number. Miss Kessler, it's Eleanor Hargrove. I have information for your investigation. Then I called Victoria Nash, Boston's most ruthless divorce attorney, nicknamed the Reaper. I need a divorce, I said. And justice, she replied. Bring everything tomorrow 8 a.m. And change your bank passwords now. 3 weeks later, I stood in the back of Willow and Vine Cafe, preparing for my first public event since the implosion. The launch of the Boston Equity Alliance, a nonprofit born from my pain. Lauren's articles had exposed a pattern at Hargrove Financial: 19 assistants in 10 years, 14 with abrupt exits and NDAs. Tonight I'd speak not as Daniel's wife but as a woman reclaiming her voice. The room filled with women, some from Daniel's firm, others inspired by the headlines. Two arrived late. Rachel Voss and Kelly Nguyen, former assistants before Tara. "We'd like to speak," Rachel said, her voice trembling. Their story's coercion, implied threats mirrored mine, shattering the myth of isolated incidents. Daniel's counterattack came fast. A press release blaming executive burnout, and me, an unstable wife seeking revenge. He claimed my infertility, our private struggle, had driven me to overreact. The SEC probe I'd triggered with his financial records painted a different picture. Embezzlement, client fund diversions. His career teetered as I lost friends, clients, and my mother's support. But new allies emerged. Michael Dougherty, Daniel's old rival, offered me a role leading his firm's ethics division. "You've got guts and perspective," he said. "We need that." 6 months later, I stood in the Regency ballroom again, overseeing its reopening Golemy first major event as Eleanor Hargrove, advocate. Daniel approached, thinner, subdued. "I've changed, Ellie," he pleaded, tears in his eyes. I knew the script. Rachel and Kelly had recorded the same lines. "Your words don't rewrite history," I said, walking away as Michael joined me, a quiet ally turning into something more. A text from Tara came that night. "Can we meet? I have proof." At Common Grounds Cafe, she handed me a US recordings of Daniel's threats. "I wasn't willing," she said. "I was trapped." The woman I'd hated became a mirror of my own betrayal. In my new apartment, I hosted a dinner for my true circle: Lauren, Victoria, Michael, and Tara. To breaking glass houses, I toasted, smiling at the scars that had built this life mine, authentic and unshakable.
If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.